his pretty face. Good morning, everybody. We had to wait on Dennis, so just so you know, he's the one dragging us down. Hey, everybody.
That's what they pay me to do.
So,
at least you sound better than you did before.
yes, much better than you did before. Oh my God. We got a feedback somewhere.
Did before.
Yes, much better than you did before. Oh my God. We got a feedback. Where's it coming from?
That's me. See, that's what you guys get for making fun of me.
Of
Yeah,
course.
it's so much fun.
Is that better?
Well, it's so easy to make too.
Yeah.
And we still got something going on.
Is it still happening?
Yeah, there's something. What is that noise? You got a train running?
Well, yeah, it's a train show.
Well, okay. Well, that's what I'm hearing then. Good gravy. You sure it's not going to run off the end of the layout over there?
I'm sure. I'm not saying it might not be rail somewhere, but it's not going to run off the end of the layout.
Oh my God. This start of this show is the epitome of the whole thing.
It can only go uphill from here.
There you go.
This is why I keep coming back, because it's like this all the time. Never a dull moment.
So much.
Oh, hope everybody had a good week. Steve, why don't you do the rundown? Oh,
Wow. We got a lot of people in this morning. Well, good morning. We got Good morning, John Canzillo, Rob T-Man, Buddy Bernard, JD. Good morning, Gerald Stewart, Roy Hardwick, Gail. Good morning, Gail. How are you? Chris Brew. Boy, you're a regular now. Good to see you, buddy. Let's see where we got. Let's see. We got Chuck, CDP. We got the CDP. Good morning. How are you? Allison. Allie, how are you? I think I said Elmar. We got Steven at Wigwag. How are you? And let's see. Who else? I'm sure I missed Buddy. So we got Buddy Steve Anderson. And Jerry. Jerry's not feeling good this morning, so I hope you feel better. Jerry.
I tried to text him and tell him I hope he got to feeling better, but I didn't have signal, so it never went through.
yeah, Jerry, hope you get to feeling better, dude. We were just talking about this morning. Ken Nolan sucks.
Yeah, Tammy and Dwight Curley popped in. And let's see. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and the first thing I want to say is thank you to all the veterans. Excuse me. To all the veterans out there on Veterans Day. Thank you for your service.
Michael McCarville, good morning.
The other thing I wanted to tell everybody, in the description of the show, I don't know if you guys caught it or not, but Allie sent me a link to a really cool little short line in East Tennessee. That would be a phenomenal model railroad if you wanted to model something like that. But it's got high hood diesels on it, timber trestles, which is you don't see too much anymore. Mm-hmm. But it's got a really cool history to that particular line, and the guy that narrates it does a pretty good job, and he gets some good shots too. So you might want to go watch it. It's about 30 minutes long. But anyway, thank you, Allie, for sending that. It was really interesting, and it was interesting on the tunnel. Did you saw it, didn't you, Steve?
I think I missed that part.
Okay, they've got a tunnel on there that was an old coal vein, and so it's a really old tunnel. So they have a scaffolding sitting off outside. I'm not sure what good that does if the thing collapses on a train, but but they got it there just in case something happened because it's so old. But anyway, it's a pretty good video, so I suggest you go watch it. It was really good. Anyway, I don't know what we're talking about today, other than being old.
We can blame Heath.
Oh, is Heath there? Yeah, well, there you go. We'll blame him.
He said he's on his way to an operation session, and they have 135 trees. Okay.
On the model railroad, I presume.
I
I
guess.
hope so.
That actually doesn't sound like too many trees to me, unless it's, like a little bitty shelf layout.
Yeah, or it's a 2x2
Yeah.
in scale, then that might be enough trees in. Bill is in Europe on work-related travel. He said he might pop in, but I'm not going to expect him because he'd have to have Wi-Fi that they'd let him do that on.
What time it is where he's at.
Yeah, that too.
Hey,
because I'm not sure where exactly he's at in Europe, but he is in the EU. Say, Steve?
I was saying I was talking to Tim Parks, and he's hoping that sometime in December he can do a live stream from the Oregon Coast Scenic when they're firing up one of their steams.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
That would be cool.
Yeah. And anyway, yeah. So we don't have a subject today other than trains and model trains and other assorted sundries.
Now, so here's a question I have. Claude, do you have your current section that you're working on with the Y? Is it upstairs or is it still in the workshop?
It's still in the shop. Right now it's actually two pieces and I've got them put together. And I'm laying all the track in, but I ran out of rail joiners. And I was telling Steve while you were gone, I had gone on eBay to buy some more because I only need, a few. I just bought a pack of 50 and I thought that might be enough. And I ran out. So I got back on to buy another pack and I'm looking through there, what popped up on my search, and I'm looking through there and I find the cheapest one and I hit buy it now and I buy it. And just before I close the screen out, I realize it's code 55. So I've got a pack of code 55 rail joiners. If anybody wants them, let me know.
Are you sure they're not going to fit your code 70?
I'm pretty sure they won't.
What brand are they?
Microengineering.
So I was thinking the code 55 and the code 70 were the same item.
I don't think so. I think they're smaller because I've got some of the bridge sections. They're flexible bridge sections. Those are code 55 and they come with their own joiners in the package. And I don't know that you can hook them to 70. I haven't tried it. They might. So I may end up with more because I had to go back in and find a pack of code 70. And of course, by the time you get them shipped to you, they're $20 a pack for 20 of them. I mean, for 50 pieces. So 25 sections you can put together, joints you can put together. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. I'm at the point now where I'm kind of at the end of the closing run and trying to get this thing put in so then I can start building the
Hey, Claude,
upstairs and take it up there. Do what now?
Mark Pruitt says he could use the code 55 from you.
Okay. Well, if I end up not using them, which I probably won't, and if anybody wants some, I've got some code 55 microengineering flexible bridge sections. I probably have 8 or 9 of them. They're not very long. They're only like 7 inches long. But if somebody wants them, let me know. Now they're narrow gauge. So, but if you want them, let me know. And I can ship them to you or get them to you somehow. Ask Dennis. I'm getting rid of all kinds of stuff.
He's got a good question that will help keep the show afloat.
What's that?
Pop that up there on the screen there, Claude.
Who is it?
Heath.
Oh God, no.
If you had to move and start over again with modeling, what would you do differently?
Me personally, I'd keep the layout much smaller and concentrate more on detail. I'm finding out that's a lot more interesting to me than most of the other stuff. So I would probably do that. I would probably do something like your time saver except where I could do maybe a continuous run or at least around a corner of a, room or something, and then do lots of detail on it. I'm finding has brought me a lot more pleasure in modeling is the detail part of the models that I'm doing. So I would probably do that. But there again, I haven't been in the layout and really running a lot of trains either. I've been trying to get other stuff done, like structures for the top deck and all that kind of stuff. So I knew what track work I could put in. But the older I get and the more physical problems I have, yeah, I wouldn't have put it upstairs, and I would not made it as big. That's what I would do.
You have any thoughts on that?
Wake up, Steve.
Or question, Steve?
For me personally,
Yeah.
what I would focus on track work. Get the track work rock solid before I did anything else, because mine runs like crap.
Yeah, that's always.
Don't candy coat it. That's how you really feel.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Or I focus on building 1.5-inch scale railroad around my house.
Yeah. For me, it would be interesting to ask this question to me again in a few more years. Right now, I don't feel like there's much I would do differently, because I did make track work a focus. From the 2 or 3 previous layouts that I messed around with, that was one of the first things that will reveal itself in your model railroad. Any weaknesses you have in your track work or your bench work as it relates to your track work will decrease the fun by a lot. So that's something that I tried to pay real close attention to, building this one. Probably one of the things that I might consider differently now, that I wouldn't have touched at all when I started this, would be a helix. I have seen enough helixes now to know that, if you do them right, they work. But I was dead set against having a no-lix, which is what I have. I've got essentially a helix spread out underneath the locations. I wanted that instead of, 3 or 4 loops of something you were never going to see. But now I could see the value of, for one, possibly having more HO scale on the layout than what I'm going to end up with now. That I might have been able to find a way to make that work a little bit better than what
You mean standard gauge?
Yeah, standard gauge, yeah. But other than that, I'm really happy with the way the layout is working, the overall concept of how things are going, the LCC part of it, the electronics part of it, so far is working flawlessly, and I love the way it's working. So I can't say that there's too many things I would do differently on this layout. A lot of the things that I would have done differently on the previous layouts, I did do differently on this one.
I think what I like the best about your layout is you have the room to do the layout without the helix.
Mm-hmm.
And in narrow gauge especially, it looks the part.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
They did climb 4% grades, but I've only seen one place on the 2 that I've been on, the narrow gauges I've been on, one little tiny section where it was that steep, or actually it was a hair steeper than that we went up. And I didn't notice it while I was on the train. I noticed it as we were coming back on the bus and going over that track where the 4% came up, and looking back down, it looked like a roller coaster going over the top. That's how steep it was. And you don't notice it coming up, but it's also not a helix.
Right.
But yeah, I can understand where a helix, and I've got one on mine, and I didn't mean to do it that way. I didn't plan it that way originally. But it fit my layout better for the room shape that I had. But I was trying to do what you did originally, and it just didn't work.
You
And
use the
boy,
whole room as a helix instead of a helix.
yeah, I was going to try and do around the room kind of thing like you're doing. And I've seen others on YouTube like that. Let's see, where is he? Roy said something, asked me something. Oh, here it is. How much smaller could you get? A small L-shaped layout, I guess, would be smaller. Yeah, it would be smaller. I mean, I'm like 11 by 17 or something like that in that room. But it's an L shape, 11 by 17. So it's not a rectangle. So I don't have the extra room. And that's where the helix at that inside corner came in really well. And it gave me the other thing it did is it gave me the visual scenic thing that you see when you come in. Now, when I get the upper deck on, you won't see it right away when you come in. But as you're entering the layout, you will see it. So that's what I was after too. That was one of the prime things I wanted was that scenery.
Yeah.
On it. So it worked out okay.
That's one of the things that I'm hoping next year somewhere I might actually be able to do a little scenery work. I've got an idea for, well, I mean, really this whole area where my workbench is, the spline coming across the top here, and I've got lots of ideas of how I want to make this better for me, and I want to attempt something up here that, you know, where I did my spline leaving the staging yard and going everywhere, I was in a real hurry, I guess you would say, even though it took a while to get the track laid and get trains moving. Now I don't have that same drive, I guess you would say. So one of the things I'm considering is using cheesecloth over the top of the spline to create my landforms. And I want to try that experiment right here to see if I like how it works. And if it does work, then I might consider doing the same thing, you know, around the edge of this going into frying pan, because
Well,
I think
what?
that will look really nice.
Allison says a good thing she likes about your layout, Dennis, is the main line running between yards. Too many layouts. He's has too many tracks and not enough scenery.
Yeah, that's something I'm trying to balance as well, is that there's at least a believable scene block between locations.
Well, and Roy said follow trains on your layout from top to bottom too.
Well, I know the plan is on this wall here, my long wall, which you can't really see from here, nearly all of that will be nothing but run, at least on the bottom, you know, the east-west part of the layout. Most of all of that will just be a scenic run. I don't think there might be, I might do like one facing or a trailing point siding on each end, one going east and one coming west. Just kind of depends on how it works out.
I tried to do that a little bit too on the upper deck because the lower deck is pretty full of track, except for where the standard gauge goes around and heads into the lower loop. But all the narrow gauge track is all pretty confined in the in the yard part of it, and then going up the mountain. But once I get to the top of the mountain, I'm coming off both ways. I've got quite a bit of just single line run, one to the mining section, the other will be over all the way across the other side of the room, which is not a long way, but to the upper deck.
And that's what you're
now the
working
upper
on
deck's
now,
going to have.
right?
I'm sorry.
That's what you're working on now, right?
Yeah, the upper deck's going to have the town of Timberline is going to have more track in it, but that's to give me some operational stuff to do. And I like intricate track work. or interesting track work. Let's put it that way. I like it when you get a lot of tracks crossing over other tracks and stuff and trying to figure out what the hell, that kind of thing. And so I've got a couple of crossovers coming off a three-way going over to the brewery, and that's the spur for the brewery. But there'll be a story involved in that and why it's laid that way. And I'm kind of working on that in my head as I'm finishing it out. I'm trying to kind of work out the storyline of the layout and stuff. So
Heath's got another good question. You might have to scroll up a little bit to find
who's that? Heath?
Heath, yeah.
Okay, is it this one?
Yeah. What are you including or not including on your layout to help imply distance, space, and time while still compressing your layout to fit your space? For me, almost, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. There's at least one 90-degree turn right now between every location on my layout. So that helps convey the distance from point A to point B, even if there isn't, it doesn't take a lot of time to get from one to the other, but the illusion of just going around, the side of a cliff or something along those lines help break up that scenery. And even just when I put the cardboard up between Silver Gulch and Frying Pan, that's another thing that really, it changed how the layout feels, and it does make Silver Gulch feel further away from Frying Pan because you can't see Frying Pan anymore, at least not very much of it. There's a couple places that you can see, but by the time I put trees up on top of the real mountain that will be there, you won't be able to see much of anything. So
it'll make a good scene block, yeah.
Yeah, that's my answer to that question is most everything has at least one 90-degree turn before you get to your next location.
Yeah, well, and on mine, it's obviously the lower deck and the upper deck. On the lower deck, the distance is, because the narrow gauge is actually a short line. If you were going to name it, that's what you would call it. You'd call it a short line, because it's a point-to-point setup. So there's not a long run, not really a lot of distance implied. It's mainly a junction for the mining that went on above that. So the distance on the bottom level is really in the standard gauge that I used, which disappear into tunnels, peak out a couple of times on their way into the bottom of the helix where they're reverse loops and come back out. But that gives me that continuous loop of the standard gauge that I can turn that on and let it run real slow through and then work my narrow gauge around it, because the narrow gauge on the bottom level goes from the yard on one side, has to cross over the standard to get up to the mountain. So it gives me some conflict there that I have to pay attention to if I'm moving stuff out of the yard and up the mountain. But then when I get up the mountain, of course, it splits off and it goes two different directions. So that gives me that feeling of vastness. But then I've also, the backdrops kind of play into that, where it goes across the steel bridge. It's got a long distance shot of the mountains behind it. So you get that feeling of depth and distance. There'll be another small short tunnel between that and Timberline. It won't be much. On the one corner, I put in a cut, which is really a visual cut. You can't see the train as it's going through there. And on the other corner, right across from it, will be probably a short tunnel.
Hey, Claude, Mike's got a good question for you. He wants to know what you feel is unavailable for narrow gauge structures. He wants to know that.
Well, I know what Mike's asking. He's asking for structures on the actual narrow gauge lines. I'm sure that's what he's asking. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. But you know, that's the funny thing when you're like, I bought most of my stuff off eBay when I was collecting stuff, and I was searching mainly narrow gauge. Well, when you do that, you get older structures, which is fine. I wanted that because of my time era, but HO structures also fit, especially if you're going to have a narrow gauge line in a more modern setting, say like a tourist narrow gauge line. You may have newer buildings also included, so you can go with HO scale, you know, search HO scale buildings and still get that same kind of stuff. But it's not to say that the HO scale buildings aren't in the older time period. So keep that in mind if you're looking for stuff like that or searching for stuff. Don't just search narrow gauge. Also include regular HO scale because it's the same scale. Usually it's an era change in it, but not always. Mike, to answer your question, buildings. I don't know. You've done so many good ones. There's all the stuff up at Cumbers Pass, Antonito, and I don't know so much about Antonito. I've not studied Antonito that much, and I've only been there once. And the Chama station's been done, I know. And on the Durango side, all the Durango stuff's been done, I think. I tell you what, if you could replicate what Kitwood, the guy in England, turntable. He did. I've got one of his that when he was still doing the narrow gauge turntables, and he did a Durango turntable, and it was a fantastic kit. You ought to get a hold of him and see if you can get the plans for it and put that out, because I guarantee he'd sell some. But he's doing mainly O scale now, I think.
Yeah,
but it was
a decent turntable that you can turn. Maybe have both the capability of as small as you want it, you know, like a 50-footer, and then also a 65, 70-footer that you can turn a K36, K37 on, and the ability to build either one out of the same kit. I don't know if that's possible or not, but
that'd be tough because of the radius, but because of the pit itself.
Right.
But even if you just offered that, you know, your main mechanism and stuff would still all be the same. But he had a really good kit, and he's not making them anymore for some reason. I don't know why. But it was Kitwood Hills, I think.
Yep. Was
his name, and I know he's out of England but I got it for a really good price.
The last little thing he put out on, if I remember, when he put out on his website, is basically don't ask for HO kit. Whatever I've made, I might make them again, I might not, but don't ask.
Mike, another
tells
thing
me that a lot of people have been asking, but he's just decided he's not going to do them for whatever reason.
Yeah, another thing might be a sanding station, similar to what Campbell scale models had, since they're no longer. That kit, I've got one. I think I showed it to you at one time. That was a really good little kit, and something like that might be good. Also, the water towers might be good.
I don't know how prevalent they were, but like Claude and I were just talking about this morning. He's got I believe it's a fine scale miniatures coaling, but it's HO. So the overall run and height of it is not well suited to narrow gauge. That would be because I've got one of those that I'm going to scratch build for my town of Frying Pan, which is Basalt, Colorado. Something along those lines. If there were a lot of those shovel in, you know, we didn't have a coaling tower in the town. All we had, you know, a gondola sitting somewhere, or a gondola, however you pronounce it, and we shoveled into the back of our tender. Something like that might
Well, like in the paperwork on the fine scale miniatures kit, it said this this structure was used mainly when labor was cheap.
Yeah.
And so they shoveled everything, did everything by hand. I know all the older guys here know what that is, but it is no longer that way. But that's, that's something that could be done, and to fit narrow gauge versus HO scale. But now there again, as a producer of kits, you limit yourself sometimes to who you can sell to if you just do narrow gauge. And that's why it's kind of tough to say just narrow gauge stuff. There you go, Dennis. He's doing a turntable kit already.
Well, I hope that he has them available before I'm ready for him. Probably will if he's working on them right now. I'm a ways away because I know I'm going to have a turntable up in my town of Hellgate, which is Aspen. I need one there, and I need one in what's going to be Leadville or Cloud City.
There you go, Mike. I'm sure you probably saw that already, but I'll stick it up there. Do a wharf. Because they had a lot of wharfs in Colorado.
Jack had a question too.
See if I can find it. I know I went by a bunch when I was going back and forth here.
It's kind of hard to keep up with. Oh, what is?
Oh, here, this one right here.
Yes, he had another one besides that one too.
I have one passing sighting at one of the mines in the middle of the run up to the mining district, but it's actually in the middle of the mining district. But there is a sighting there. There won't be a sighting after the Y over to Timberline until I get to Timberline. It's not a long enough run to put one in. Most of that run is actually bridge, going through a cut and then through the bridge, over the bridge, and then through a tunnel to Grandma's house we go. But
that time of year.
Yeah. But no, I don't have any other passing sightings. I do have one right before you go, or just as you start to go up the mountain. I've got one there. But there wasn't a lot of room to put very many in, but I did put one in at the Y. So there's a passing sighting at the Y itself, which was fun trying to figure out how to wire that. But
I think I'll try and find room for one passing sighting between Maroon Creek and the Time Saver, wherever it ends up being at. Other than that, I don't think I'll have any.
Yeah.
He's wanting to know what happened to my turntable that I already built. It's on the layout. It's working. Now, I haven't motorized it yet, but I'm not in a hurry to do that because I'm not working on frying pan at the moment.
Mike said Bantam makes a great sanding house. So there you go. So I didn't know if somebody else was making one, but I just knew Campbell had quit, and I so like Campbell scale models. I've got a bunch of them on my layout, but I also have a lot of other stuff too.
Yeah, I've got a turntable right now, but I need two more.
Oh my God, Lynn, I'm so sorry, dude. Like I said, this is why I keep coming back to this show.
Yeah.
Never know what somebody's going to say. Oh, Mike says wharfs are huge in Denver.
Yeah.
I've not seen a wharf in Denver.
No.
He's talking about probably with the modelers in Denver. I've never seen one in Denver, but doesn't mean it's not there.
Mike wants to know if we prefer manual switches and turntables or motorized.
I have
right
both.
Now, my turntable is not motorized, and I have no issues spinning it around with my finger and turning turning it. Although I think I would rather see it do it on its own, like you would see the real thing do. I would prefer that.
Well, and the one that I bought from Kitwood Hills, he had it with or without the motor, and I bought it with the motor, and it's a really nice little. He's got it geared very well. It doesn't turn real fast, so it makes it easier to line up. It's quiet. Mine is motorized on the turntable. Now my switches, I've got all of them. I've got a manual one. I've got a manual stub switch. I've got, most of them are tortoises. Almost all of them are tortoises. And then, well, even the automatic turnouts are tortoises, but they're automatics. I don't have to do anything to them. The train throws them. So I've got kind of a combination of everything.
I prefer my turnouts to be motorized, and as much, if I can take my own stupidity out of is it turned or is it not turned, and have a computer make the decision for me rather than me, I find I have fewer derailments that way. That's the whole idea. That's why I went with LCC and routes.
Yeah.
So I do all of the hard work in the quote unquote programming of that. Then I push a button and everything aligns itself. So I don't have to look at the points to know whether I'm going diverging or straight through.
Okay, so Mike's more up on it than I am with Kitwood. He knows what's going on. I didn't know he was having parts issues with the motors. I wasn't paying that much attention, but I like this. Allie says she likes triangles, but rather than turntables. But yeah, that's, I can understand if you're having issues getting parts for what you're wanting to do, you got to quit trying to sell them. And Dennis, how many tables are you going to put on the layout, Jack?
It should be a total of 3, 2 more counting the one I've already got, unless, there's dramatic changes to the layout plan that I have right now. Because I'm going to have a Y here, and I'll have a turntable at the far east end of the layout. I've got a return loop at the west end of the layout that's already built. And then I've got one in Frying Pan. So I can bounce back and forth between Frying Pan and Cloud City, and I have a turntable of both of those locations.
I want to know if you can put a wheel on the facing to turn it. And that's a good idea. I never thought about that. If you got
what do we mean by turn wheel?
Just a handle. Like a outside faucet handle or something.
Yeah.
A valve handle.
I would rather see it slowly rotate like the real thing.
Well, you could do that. You could do it whatever speed you wanted then, because it's manual.
Yeah, but can your wrist? You'd have to overdrive it so that you wouldn't have to.
Well, some of us don't have the physical limitations you have.
Right, you'd have to stop somewhere and grab the wheel again, and then the turntable would stop.
Yeah,
and then that would destroy the illusion. That's what I'm thinking, unless I'm misunderstanding how that works.
Yeah.
Hey, show us your triangle that you're working on.
You what?
Oh, did you say? Are you talking to me? I'm sorry, I was reading chat.
No, yeah. Why don't you show everybody your triangle you're working?
Yeah, my triangle. My Y. I can do that. Let me get the camera switched around. In the meantime, you guys can talk about something else.
Oh, we talk about
the differences between triangles and Ys.
You need to
Mark says he knows someone who put a mirror on the ceiling and a hand crank on a turntable, so he can see when it's aligned by looking into a mirror. That's kind of neat.
Hey, Claude,
I don't think that's why you put a mirror on the ceiling, was for turntables. But
hey,
I could be wrong.
Hey, before you leave, make yourself big.
I'm going to calm down.
Suppliers keep closing. Campbell's
figure out how to get. Okay, here we go.
Was Mike's supplier for corrugation, and he lost that.
There we go.
It'll take me a second to get out there, but
Don't fall.
really, that would just add to the fun.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be able to see it.
Hey, you'd see me fall, or you see something fall anyway.
Well, we hear it.
Okay. And I apologize for the lights. I've got some lights I need to replace. Okay, and let me get some stuff out of the way. I wasn't planning on showing this morning. Okay, so here's my Y right here, and this will be for turning the engines at Timberline. This spur right here in the middle, that's going to the brewery, and this is where I've got the crossings going over the Y to make for some interesting track work. And then the other leg of the Y comes down right here, and then back into the yard lead. And there's the coaling trestle.
Woo.
That's the trestle. Now that's scratch built right there.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's where it's HO scale, but that's the size the coaling tower is. So it's going to be earth up to this point, and that's where the table splits. Right here is where the table splits. And so all the tracks will get cut so that I can split it, and I'll cut that one and it'll split off.
Have you already glued it to the table?
Yes. Yeah, it's all glued and set in place. So when I cut it, it'll all be where it needs to be. The only thing that I'm not putting on before I get up there is the actual coaling tower, because it sets up above the track even, and I still will probably need to flip this upside down to do wiring and stuff. The coaling tower, Mike probably knows what this looks like, but this is the animal right here. And hang on a second, let me do something. There we go. Okay, so this is the coaling tower here.
Nice.
And they'd shovel off by hand into the bins. And then they got this little part down here and where they have buckets of coal. I'm not sure what they're doing with that, but that's what's in the kit. And then this, I'm assuming, was all earth filled. And then they had a short trestle going over to the actual tower. And I guess you could shorten this up if you really planned it. You move that platform up a little bit. You could probably do it for narrow gauge. I built it to plan and wasn't really thinking about it.
Have you considered lowering the plywood underneath it?
No, I haven't, but I do have one. If you can see the wavy line right there,
yeah,
that's one of the supports. So it would be right in the middle of that tower. It'd be awfully tough to do that because I couldn't support them.
I got a question for you, Claude.
Yes, sir.
Why did you use commercial crossing as opposed to building them in place? Was it you were lazy and just wanted to those?
Yeah, these are Shinohara crossings. The one I used on the lower deck, I had I can't remember who I had build that. I don't remember his name, but he builds, turnouts and everything else. And I didn't have the filing jigs and stuff I needed. And I tried doing one with one filing jig that I do have, but I don't have the jig to put the turnout in. I mean, the crossing in. And since I only needed one, I wasn't going to buy one for $100 and something. So having somebody else build it was cheaper. But then I decided I wanted to do some up here. And I thought, once it's painted, nobody's going to tell the difference. And plus it's on the upper deck. Unless you're my height, you're not going to see down on it as much as I can. So I wasn't too worried about that. But anyway, yeah, those are commercial, and that's why, because it just saved time and money. I got each of these for about $15 a piece. So 2 of them for $30 and, saved a lot of time in the process.
Oh, sure.
So these are Dennis probably wants to see these. This is one Y, and it's been tweaked a little bit on the legs, but that's off that 3-way jig without the middle section. And then once I got it in here, I just, unsoldered some of these and moved them over to where I needed them to line up. The other Y, as you can see, the legs on it are much straighter. That's how it would come out of the jig. So, but that's out of that 3-way jig, and it makes a really nice little number 6 Y. But anyway, so that's what I'm working on right now, is getting all this put in. But I can't lay any more track until my joiners get here next week.
Yeah, always
pretty cool looking little yard.
Always double check before you hit the buy now button.
Yeah. I was tired. I was tired and in a hurry, and I thought, okay, this one's about $2 cheaper with shipping and everything than the other one that I saw, and so I just hit it and did it and didn't think about it. And yeah, buyer beware, that kind of thing. I did that a couple of times ordering plumbing hardware for the American. Yep. And that's where it get costly. Start doing that. I'm sure everybody wants to see my garage. Oh yeah. Get in here. I'll flip this back around. Well, it looks really good, Claude. Yeah, it's coming along. It's coming along. I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and it is an oncoming train, by the way. Okay, so I'm gonna get this flip back around. Allie said, "There's the scary picture." Say again, Steve? Oh, Allison said that was a good price for HON3 truck. Yeah, for the crossings. Yeah, somebody had a whole bunch of different. They had a 90-degree, a couple of 60s, a couple of 30s, a couple of 45s, and they were selling them for $15 a piece. And so I hopped on them, and one of them had a second bid on it, but they dropped out before the final deal. So I ended up getting them both for $30, which I thought was a pretty decent price, because it's not easy to find narrow gauge crossings. Jack, that's the coolest ever. Say again? Oh, Jack says that's the coolest triangle ever. Well, like I say, I like the interesting track work. I find that fascinating to think, okay, now why did they bother to cross over all this stuff instead of rerouting things? Well, it's that much more work. Sometimes it was probably easier to make the crossing frogs than it was to reroute all the track. Less time consuming, less labor, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, why wouldn't they do that? Especially in a small short line like what I've got. There's not that much traffic going to this brewery. It's not like it's Coors Plant or something. Coors Plant's got its own yard, but then they're shipping all over the country, so they have to have. But this line is not that way. So
how much of that track work did you intentionally design for the purpose of looks versus functionality? In other words, because of how I'm trying to think how to say it. Because some of it's because you like the way it looks, I presume, and then how much of it is because it turned out necessary to do it that way?
Probably 65-35.
Which way?
Looks over functionality, but there is some of it that I had to have. I'm going to have on the narrow side, and I don't have it in yet. You didn't see it there, but where the station's going to be, it's got its passing siding right there, where the train can come in one side, the engine can detach, pull back out, go through the Y, flip around, and come back and hook on the train and pull it back down the mountain. So you know, as I was laying stuff out, and it took me a while to figure it all out, but that's kind of how my brain works. I'm much better at it in place than I am on paper.
Me too. Yeah.
And so once I got it in there, that's why I wanted to build all the turnouts. So I knew what I had. I knew I wanted the three-way in there because I love the look of the three-way. They're a pain in the butt to build, but
Yes, they are.
But the rest of the turnouts aren't, and all of the turnouts up there are number 6 or better. I'll have a couple of curved turnouts coming in, but yeah, most of it was for looks because I knew that's what I wanted. And then I've got a small yard. I've got a small engine house. I'll have a maintenance away track. I'll have a caboose track. You know, they're basically stubs off of the yard, but that's all a line like that really needs. If you go on the Durango Silverton line, you get up to Rockwood, which is just before the High Line, and there's a small housing village there called Rockwood. Well, they've got a siding that's got their extra diesel engine, their 44 tonner, and some maintenance away equipment, stuff like that sitting up there on the siding. But it's not like it's real formalized. It's just a place to put it. So it's not like you would find on a large division point yard where everything's got its place and everything goes in that place. You know, on small lines like that, they put it where they've got room. I mean, you can tell that if you go to some of these smaller lines. That's what happens.
Hey, Claude, Jack got a good question for you. So will the majority of the layout be point to point using the triangle? Not only
Thanks, Allie. He's not going to let that go.
not going to let that go.
For a shove or drag to spot and drop. The standard gauge part of the layout, which is all in the lower level, is loop to loop. The narrow gauge is point to point. Actually, it's point to point to point because there's at the top of the helix, at the top of the mountain, there's a Y going to the mining district and over to Timberline. Then there's another Y in Timberline to turn the engines. And I thought about putting the turntable in, and I decided on the Y. A little more operational stuff to do. Also, it's interesting. I mean, there's a Y. If you go on the Durango Silverton, you get to Silverton, they turn the entire train on a Y while you're at lunch. They go up and they stay there for 2 hours, and that 2 hours you're off looking around town and going to lunch and that sort of thing. They turn the train around and back it back up, and it's ready to go when you come back from lunch.
Well,
So,
Mike says his club has a 36-inch turntable to spin a whole train.
I would like to see
yeah,
that.
well, that's, you know, yeah, if you got enough room. I've seen that with transfer tables and everything. I've seen the things where you unplug them.
Yeah.
You spin the whole thing around and plug it in the other direction.
Well, and that way you wouldn't have to have a triangle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But, you know, for me, a lot of it was the track work and stuff. I just find that interesting, how they would do stuff, and then look for the reason why they did it. And it's usually not hard to figure out why they did it. Like I said, it's most of the time it was cost and, you know, and time. So anyway, that's kind of what I did. And I just fit it in, and it took me several sessions of laying turnouts out and figuring out where I wanted to put stuff. And of course, the thing you have to worry about doing that is making sure all your spacing's correct, stuff like that. So I had to make some spacer blocks and stuff like that, but it's worked out pretty well. I'm glad I decided to build it in the shop instead of, you know, at least get the track down in the shop as opposed to upstairs. Because as you see, it's pretty wide. At the widest point at the one end is 5 feet.
How are you going to get that up the stairs?
Carry it. It's basically 4x4. Okay, with the one little section at the one end of the Y over by the brewery sticks out, makes it 5 foot. But
You're going to have your boy help you?
No, it's gonna
Probably.
are you gonna videotape that?
That or my daughter. My daughter's probably stronger than I am.
Are you
Do am I going to videotape putting it on there? Probably
Yeah.
not. I'm sure there will be foul language involved.
I want to watch.
Okay.
Mike's got a question. The answer is yes. Let me make sure I understand it. Will you do another deck over your backdrop or add artwork? I'm debating both ideas. If you're referring to this, yes. Right here, this is actually what I'm going to work on today because my spline comes from here, wraps around, and then we'll go across and then back that way. So I'm going to work on getting the bench work in today, right here across where the top of the blue is. And there will be more artwork above there. Haven't really visualized what that's going to look like yet. I'm going to probably have to wait until I've got the spline going across the top. The high line going to the far corner of the room, that's the high line. That's going to Aspen, Colorado, or what I'm going to call Hellgate. And that will all be spline until it gets there. There's going to be another town directly above this, which is Maroon Creek, and that's where my Y is. Claude and I are almost doing the exact same thing at the same time. I'm working on a Y right here. But how that looks yet, I don't know, because it's also going to be dependent upon what my eye can see from standing at Silver Gulch, because some of this can be seen from across the room. So I want to interface backdrop and physical mountain with elements that can be seen from across the room. So I'm not entirely sure how it's all going to work, but I think I'm going to do everything is going to be painted for me, just because
You've got so much of it.
Because I've got so much wall. If I tried to do a printed backdrop, I think the cost would be
way too much.
It'd be a little more than what I'm willing to do. Yeah. In addition to other things that are already a little costly. I hope
mine were bad enough, but I didn't feel like I could paint a good enough backdrop, which I don't know because I didn't try. But
you could.
Yeah, from the guy I bought it from, I mean, they're fantastic backdrops. I bought the more expensive material, which I don't think would make that much difference. It was only a couple of bucks per foot difference. But for as much footage as you have, yeah, it could be expensive.
Yeah, because I've got the whole outside of this room, which is 27 by 30.
Well, and the other problem with a with a photo type backdrop, unless the person that you're getting it from has the capacity to stitch pictures together enough that you can get a very, very, very long run, then you've got to put something in. And that's what I did. I just took what he had stock wise and I did some scene breaks. So I didn't have to worry about, paying extra to have all that kind of stuff done.
The advantage of painting is you can work what you paint in with your physical.
Yeah. Well, see, and I did just the opposite
in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, I worked my scenery to match the backdrop, and up on the mining district, I think it worked really well, really, really well. I was real happy with that backdrop behind the main part of the mining district. Jack had asked, was it Jack asked me a question? Okay, yeah, it was Jack. So the majority of the slab would be point to point. No, that's not the one. Ask me something else. Oh, it was here. Here we go. that Y is going to give a triangle. It's going to give a headache because it's going to be challenging trying to move cars. Well, the thing is, Jack, I didn't really show it, but the one leg that was furthest away from the Camry, is only long enough to get a K-27 on. Okay, so the C-19s, which will be mainly the ones up there, but a K-27 will be up there every now and then. Well, it's big enough to put just the engine in. It's not a whole train. It's not even an engine in a car. Now, the other leg is a little bit longer, but it's not, I didn't put the Y in to turn trains. I put the Y in to turn the locos. So that's all that'll happen there.
I will be able to turn a train on my Y up here. It's actually what I'm building here is an interchange. Functionally on the railroad, I'm going to have an interchange in this corner up here that will hopefully add a lot of operational interest.
You've got a lot more room than I've got.
I'm looking forward to it.
I think our topic for next week will be triangles.
Okay, here's Ali's definition here. Y has 1 point. A triangle has 3 points. True, Ali, that's true. Now you go find an old railroad guy and tell him it's a triangle and not a Y. Okay. Oh, here we go. I may add a square. It's a Y, but actually 4 legs. Oh my goodness. Okay.
I think we're well over our 1 hour.
Yeah,
Are we?
about 2 minutes over.
Yeah, we did go over. There
Hey,
again.
it's about time, Sparky. Better late than never.
Hey, Sparky.
Yeah, just in time for us to say goodbye.
Yeah. Well, everybody, thanks for showing up. I can't believe it went so fast today. Have a good rest of your weekend and a good week, and we'll see you next week. And hopefully see you next week. And maybe Bill will be back. Hopefully Jerry will be back. But take care until next week. We'll see you later.
Later, guys.
Take care.